Hello and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So in this episode, I'll be discussing the 2002 drama cum crime movie Better Luck Tomorrow, as directed by Justin Lin. So, if you are watching this episode as part of my Fast and Furious season, then you may be wondering whether or not I've kind of lost my mind. Especially knowing the way I do things. I don't normally put films in the middle of series like this. The director of this movie, Lin, has in fact directed 5 movies in the Fast and Furious franchise. 2006's The Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, 2009's Fast and Furious, 2011's Fast 5, 2013's Fast and Furious 6, and the upcoming, released now, at the time of this review, the 9th installment, F9. But the director alone is not the reason I've actually included this movie into my Fast and Furious series. If it was, I'd have also included 2016 Star Trek Beyond. So the link is actually quite a little bit more than that. Whilst researching the Fast and Furious series for my overall reviews, which I like to do, I actually found out that this film features the character of Han Lu, as played by Kang, that was introduced into the Fast and Furious franchise by Lin in Tokyo Drift. This character, as confirmed on numerous occasions, retrospectively mind you, by both Lin and Kang, is actually one of the characters that features in Better Luck Tomorrow, thus making it, albeit somewhat retroactively, part of the Fast and Furious continuity, so to speak. So, as soon as I found that out, I did make a beeline to include the movie in my series. I did, however, have a little bit of trouble placing the films in terms of the overall review in the series, mainly because it was actually released prior to the second movie in the franchise, Too Fast, Too Furious, but I thought it would certainly seem off to kind of include this film between the first and the second movies, so I opted for between the third and the fourth. That way, you, as my audience, would have been introduced to Han Lu as a character in my series, at least, and therefore this review would kind of make a little bit more sense, you know? But, and I must stress this, this film does not form part of the official series of The Fast and the Furious. As far as I'm aware, it might have been retconned in from a character's perspective, but I don't think they've officially said this is a part of, it's never in a box set for Fast and Furious, you know? In terms of the franchise, it is perhaps a curiosity piece, and serving as an unofficial origin story for Han Lu, if you like. And I think that's where it sits in the main. So, I, however, then watched this on 2 levels. One, as a potential link to the franchise, but also intended originally, you know, as it was originally intended as it was released, as an independent film, on its own accord, against its own merits and its own weaknesses. It is the latter where this review is primarily based, and hopefully you'll see why as I go along. So the movie then. Well, I went into this with an open mind and no expectations or preconceptions. I knew it wasn't going to be anywhere close to Fast and the Furious in style, not execution. And although I was right in that respect, I was happy to have not expected this. You know, I was, to be very honest, quite pleasantly surprised with this movie overall. To be clear, this is not an action movie at all. It is not a comedy. It contains no car chases, no special effects. It is more of a kind of a serious toned coming of age teen drama, angst movie if you like, set against a group of friends who become ever increasingly involved in the world of crime. Starting off with petty acts such as being involved in a cheat sheet racket at their high school, then moving up on through the ranks to drug dealing and acts of genuinely befitting thugs. In the movie, we are introduced to best friends, Ben, as played by Parry Shen, and Virgil, as played by Jason Tobin, who do find a harrowing discovery at the beginning of the movie. The movie then shifts to follow Ben narrating his time at school and giving us an introduction to his goals and ambitions as we take a magnified look into what motives kind of drive his life. Ben is, on the surface, a conscientious and exceedingly smart high school student who will do anything and everything to make his college application stand out, spreading himself thin amongst varying pursuits, offering Spanish translations at the hospital, making it onto the school basketball team, holding down a part-time job, and becoming part of the school's academic decathlon team, just to name a few. You know, he's not one to want to wait. But Ben gets into a melee easily and looks to substitute, no, I would probably say vent, by undertaking a number of rebellious, darker extracurricular activities, shall we say, partaking in a number of petty theft and credit card fraud crimes with his friend Virgil. Virgil fancies himself as a bit of a player, perhaps a ladies' man, but from the offset you can see that most of this is bravado to compensate for being continually berated and ridiculed by his cousin, Han, as played by Sung Kang, who also joins them in their criminal pursuits. They then get mixed up with another high school or high-achieving student at their high school, Derek, as played by Roger Fan, and together they start getting involved in darker and darker crimes, getting a thrill from the danger and drunk on the power, getting involved in drugs, guns, with a reputation that really does start to precede them. A downward and out-of-control spiral ensues until Ben calls it a day following a drugs overdose. Although he starts to get his life back on track, between the four friends, they just can't resist when a new offer presents itself in the way of a house robbery crafted by Steve, as played by John Cho, the peppy, cheating and swarmy boyfriend of Ben's love interest throughout the film, Stephanie Vandergosh, as played by Karin and Cheung. Things then take rather a dark turn, however, when the group despicably devise a plan to double-cross Steve and use the opportunity to teach him a lesson he will never forget. Now, some of the brief plot synopsis I have seen for this movie have tipped this movie to be a crime drama, which I suppose that it is, of sorts, but this gave me the impression that it was perhaps a heist movie of sorts, but that's not the case. It is more a study on the lives of these four students, and while they delve into the life of crime and ultimately how this can take a hold like addiction, I suppose. So just going to kind of mention, if you can hear quite a lot of kind of tip-tap, and as I'm recording, it has literally just started thundering and lightning outside as I am recording this. So there's not much I'm going to do about that now. It is a bit of a racket, but if you can bear with me, we'll get through. But yes, that's what that is. Literally just this second. It sounds like a torrential downpour outside. Now, overall, as I said earlier, I really did enjoy this movie. I wouldn't say it is paced particularly well, while it tries to kind of set the groundwork for the characters. It does kind of reiterate themes and character traits a little too much at the beginning of the movie. It kind of does kind of beat the same drum for each of these characters in this respect, and it makes it feel quite slow overall. It kind of doesn't produce any kind of energy, you know? But, and actually this is quite a big but, I must admit that this film, although feeling a bit long and, as I've said, slowly paced, did keep my attention and intrigue throughout. We are presented with characters you genuinely wanted to get to know, with a story you really wanted to see how it all played out, and where the lives of these four teens were going. It was a film which examined the way in which what starts off as small, petty crime can quickly escalate into something much more serious, and how the pressures of needing to constantly achieve can result in the need to, as I said earlier, vent. And find a way to release, and this can often result in actions we wouldn't normally or didn't intend on taking. Now, in this respect, the film did resonate with me personally. Now, I'm not saying I took anything to the extreme shown with the characters in this movie, but I did come close. I felt the need to constantly prove I could achieve, and started to get involved. I did start to get involved in the wrong crowd, and the power and the thrill of doing things that I knew to be wrong and getting away with it kind of became a way of life for a while. So yeah, I can emphasize with the characters in this film to some extent. What I can say is that for what I did during that time, this has stayed with me throughout my entire life and has filled me with so much remorse for my actions. The film did hit a nerve, you know, and they are things that happened. But what can I say? Other than I do apologise, and I have tried to apologise to everybody that was involved, but that was many, many years ago now, you know? But pack mentality starts to take over, and it starts to push you to do things you wouldn't normally consider, such as in the film, taking a gun to a party, beating somebody up. So this is one of Lin's early works. I think being only the second motion picture that he had actually directed, and no, this does not feel quite as polished and stylish perhaps as some of his later works. But you can certainly see some of his style kind of starting to develop in this movie, you know? The film does bring a number of themes and issues to the forefront, but only ever really, I think, takes a glimpse at them before then moving on to something else. Cutting a number of scenes in this way, which kind of means the movie can lack a bit of overall depth at times. Although I must say that we do get to know that three of the main characters, Ben, Virgil and Derek, very well throughout as that story is being told. The film touches on issues as the perceived expectations of Asian students to be high achievers, you know, perceived racism from other students, which does lead to some rather violent and raw confrontations. But then it just quickly shifts onto another topic for this theme to then be never touched on again. And I think that's maybe a missed opportunity. The same can be said for the crimes themselves, and indeed the integration of drugs into the repertoire. At times the film is quite hard-cutting, but then when Ben decides he's had enough, that's it. His entire life gets back on track. Snap, just like that. The film really does fail to kind of show the stark reality. I wish I'd been doing a horror movie review. A stark reality of addictions to drugs, you know, crime or otherwise. And in this respect, it goes somewhere to glamorizing them as a casual dip-in, dip-out kind of thing. Again, kind of glossed over in preference for continuing the overall story. A real casual attitude to its central themes in this respect. This film also seemed, on a couple of occasions, to simply throw a situation at the viewer they kind of never previously identified as a core concept to the characters or plot. And indeed, one seemed completely unnecessary, by perhaps speaking more to the mental state of one of its characters. But in my opinion, this had already kind of been established a lot earlier than this scene. And this was the scene where all the characters go to Vegas as part of the school's academic decathlon competition and organise a prostitute for the evening. Ben makes a point of saying this was one of his ambitions to lose his virginity, but until this very scene, it had never been brought up. And in his spiel at the start of the film, where we learned in depth about the character's state of mind. So I just kind of found that scene completely irrelevant and unnecessary, given everything that we'd been told at the beginning. What I can say is that the characters themselves are the main focus of this film. It is a study into a snapshot, if you like, of their lives, especially Ben's. And I did find them to be intriguing and captivating, something I wasn't expecting, if I'm honest. The acting is a little awkward, it's clunky and perhaps a bit clumsy at times, but for the most part, it's quite raw, you know, and relatively realistic in its tone throughout. The actors do a great job in bringing these characters to the screen and in making you want to see more about their exploits and where they're travelling in life. Overall, it starts good, investing time and detail in its characters. Tails off a bit in the middle, but regains its depth towards the end with one raw, gritty, brutal, and I would say shocking ending I was not expecting at all. So in terms of its links to the Fast and Furious franchise, like I said at the start, do not expect too much. And after watching the film, I can confirm that that is indeed correct. It is nothing like any of the films in that series. Possibly closer to the third one. You can see the similarities between this and where then Lin took the third movie. You know, once you've seen them both, you kind of get some of the analogies that were made. And the involvement of Sung Kang's character, Han, to which the links to this franchise is made, is minimal, really. He's in the film quite a bit, but he's not really central to any of the themes. Although part of the main four characters that we have, his part was secondary and really was only kind of background noise, you know? It could have really been anybody playing this part. It wasn't It was Han, but it wasn't Han, if you know what I mean. There was no reason for that character to be in the film. And it wouldn't have made much difference. As an origin story, it is pretty lackluster and doesn't really explore in depth that specific character, like I said. This film should be viewed as a standalone movie. You know, that's how this one should go. A curiosity piece, like I said at the start. There was one, when I think about it, actually one singular Fast and Furious reference, but it was actually with regards to the gang's reputation that was starting to form, i.e., it was becoming Fast and Furious. So I'm not at all sure if this was kind of a twig to what Lin was going to do next. I don't know. I don't know. He maybe knew at the time. But anywho, the way it was said perhaps made me think that there was some intent as a point was made to kind of make sure we heard it. But I don't know. I don't know. Perhaps I was looking for something that wasn't actually there. So, overall, perhaps not brilliantly paced, but this film kept me captivated and held my attention throughout, with some great characters that really made you feel as though you were along with them for the ride, as part of their journey. You know, in life, it gets you invested in its characters and does pay off with kind of a hard-cutting, emotional series of events that accumulate in a raw and brutal ending, which will shape the lives of these characters forever, which is made ever more the poignant in the fact that we really do not know what lies are in store for these characters following the events which transpire in the movie. Well, bar perhaps two. One, of course, we know about. The other, well, I'll leave this for you to find out if you do indeed watch the film. The way the movie kind of made me feel at the very end did stay with me for a little while after watching it, I must admit. It really is kind of that kind of sharp and really that kind of shocking. So do bear with that if you do watch it. So that brings me to the end of this episode. Many thanks for watching. I do have enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, and other movie-related content. Absolutely loved having here at SciFirst MovieTalk, and we definitely love to have you back. But most of all, just thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.